Hello, everyone. I am very excited because today I have a special guest, Mustafa from Uzbekistan. Now, he started learning English from zero, from scratch in 2020 and achieved a band 8 in speaking on the IELTS. So, Mustafa, why don't you share with everyone why did you start learning English?
All right. So, hi everyone. Hi Jennifer. First off, thank you very much for inviting me. I remember back in 2020, like many people, I was planning to apply for uni, and I really wanted to study in one of those European countries. Well, I remember my second lesson in English, my teacher kicked me out of the lesson because I did not do my homework, and it was the point when I realized I needed a lot of change of scenery. I had to change something. Something had to be changed. So I went home. I did a lot of thinking. I not only thought about my environment, my circle, my friends, my social media, and everything. Like a lot of ideas, popped into my head. I remember this very much vividly. I was sitting in my room and I was doing a lot of thinking. So the first thing what I did was I broke my SIM cards. I deleted my messenger apps, Telegram, and also I deleted my Instagram. At that time, by the way, I was a very active user of social media, especially Instagram. I had a lot of followers. I always kept connection with my friends and acquaintances. But despite the fact that I did not care, what I really wanted was like deep down, I needed peace plus I needed education. That's what I needed. So I deleted my social media and I started eliminating, distraction that I had around me, whether it was toxic environment, whether it was social media, everything. And I did not like announce that I would do something. I was going to do this. I was going to lock in for 6 months and transform myself. No, 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 no. I was quietly, I really wanted to quietly improve myself, making incremental, gradual progress. So at that time, everything started. At the time, I planned my future. At the time, I isolated myself for the next 2 years, and so yeah, it was like a absolute transformation.
Wow, that's a powerful story. And I certainly took away a lot from that. First, I took away you had this negative experience where you got kicked out of your English class for not doing your homework. So we have an expression, we call that a wake up call. When you
Yes,
realize that
that
things.
was actually a wake up call. And sorry for interrupting, because before that, I was a very good video gamer. I would play computer
Mm.
games like all the time. I would hang out with my friends all the time. So something had to change. And it was like a light bulb went off in my mind when my teacher kicked out of the lesson. He also told me that I would give you the money, the payments back. So, oh, hold on a minute. Something had to change here. So, yeah, it all started then. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's quite a powerful shift. It takes a lot of commitment as well to do something like that. So you completely changed your environment to, let's say, optimize it more for learning and improving. Now, I can see some of your environment in the background behind you. I see some sticky notes. So
Yes.
why don't you explain what those are and how that is a part of your learning routine and your process as well?
All right. In our previous interview, I think we showed the study area that I had. I have always emphasized the importance of having a study area because it gives you a psychological signal. When you walk into your study area, you kind of feel this burning desire to study, and this is what happens to me all the time. Here I have loads of books. I have ordered over 1,000 books from abroad, and I'm about to start my online business. Plus, I am about to engage in this like reading process a lot. And back to study area, it's very important since I'm an English teacher and I do both online and face-to-face teaching right now. I tell my students all the time, at least you have to have a study table. Otherwise, it's kind of weird to study anywhere and anywhere like if you don't have the study area. So as you can see in my bag here, I have the sticky notes. It kind of gives me a little bit motivation to study. It spurs action when I'm feeling demotivated, demoralized. So I've studied it a lot. I've read a lot of articles, also listened to a lot of podcasts. In order to study more and effectively, you have to have this study area, at least study table. So yeah,
That's a powerful concept as well, and I've heard of that concept as well of simply making things visible. So
yes,
making your studying visible, you're more likely to do it. I heard the concept of if you want to start working out, going to the gym, simply by leaving your shoes by the front door, making your shoes visible, you're more likely to say, "Oh, I'm going to go to the gym." So it sounds like that's the concept that's been effective for you is just making it
100%.
visible.
100%. And these days, I am placing a lot of emphasis on studying more. So I have changed my style a little bit. And guess what? My students are studying for 100 hours a week. And that's so we have I have also done a lot of studying regarding this. I also heard that Jordan Peterson, a Canadian psychologist therapist, if I'm not mistaken, works for 100 hours a week. So I have taken that approach and applied to my students. Right now, guess what? My students are studying anywhere from 60 to 100 hours a week. Yes, we talk about the quality. Absolutely. My students are not stupid. They are also focusing a lot on the quality while studying. They have the study area, they don't have social media. They study for hours and hours on end. So I think it is working and they are getting better results.
Focus is a great thing. And of course, social media is a tool. You can use it to educate yourself,
100%.
like my students do with my YouTube channel and other YouTube channels.
100%.
Or you can use it to waste time by endlessly scrolling. So, can you share perhaps, let's say there's a student who feels like they spend too much time endlessly scrolling or watching cat videos or non productive social media use. But studies show that this is very much an addiction in people's lives. So, can you share perhaps a practical tip or a practical strategy that my students watching can use to try to reduce their unproductive screen time?
Well, back in 2020, what I did was I deleted Instagram and Telegram because I was not earning any money and I was not benefiting. So I deleted both. However, I used YouTube. I made a list of the people that I would follow and watch all the time. Only English teachers. So I would watch them. However, if I overwatched or overspent on YouTube, I would take my phone away, let's say for 3 days or 4 days, and use my family's smartphones to watch YouTube videos for 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours. Well, sometimes it kind of seems like impossible, or sometimes it seems really strange not to use your phone, especially in the 21st century. But guess what? Like after 30 years, 40 years, do you want to look back and do you feel regrets? That's what you want? Or do you actually want to improve yourself? That's what I keep telling myself all the time. That's what I did back in 2020. I did not use social Instagram for 4 years because I was not earning any money. And guess what? Right now, I am a very active user of Instagram. I have over 200K because I'm not only earning money but also gaining popularity and also sharing my own experience with as many people as possible. Look, if you do not have a solid, concrete purpose, delete social media. You can use YouTube because YouTube is a powerful weapon to educate yourself. There are thousands of podcasts, thousands of educational YouTube videos, including yours. So take your phone away, use your family's smartphones to watch for a couple of days until you adjust yourself, adopt yourself, and then gradually you'll start making progress. You will absolutely like the feeling of tranquility. So yeah.
I like that gradual approach you recommend. And I also like perhaps having a playlist of specific people you follow so you're in control of the content you consume rather than allowing an algorithm to tell you what to watch next. You decide who to follow and who to watch. So those are great recommendations. Now, you mentioned that you are actively working with your own students, both online and in person. So, what do you feel is the one thing that your students are struggling with when it comes to improving their English fluency, or perhaps even a mistake that you see all your students consistently make?
I would say distractions are a huge crisis these days, students that are facing. If students do not have distractions, everybody can study. Everybody, literally everybody. Eliminate distractions as possible as you can for your future, for your family. Try to do that. The time is flying. Yesterday it was 2000, yesterday it was like 2016, today is like 2024, so time is flying. Lock in, shut out all the distractions you have. The second thing which I have noticed is like no patience. That's a very huge problem. Students want to make progress really quickly. That's not the case. That's actually not the case. um, Learn how to make little gradual incremental progress. Little by little it becomes a lot. It's a life learning process. You don't just wake up and bingo, abracadabra, you become fluent. That's not the case. English is a very beautiful language and it's very interesting. Watch movies in English, watch cartoons in English, listen to music in English, enjoy the process. Do not think about the results, statistics, the numbers. Just immerse yourself in learning English as much as possible. A lot of students come up short of learning because they feel like they are not progressing. You are progressing. It's like this line. You don't feel that you are making progress, but one day it's like bomb. It does give you this, what do you call that? What do you call that? The sudden improvements that you feel eventually. So patience, you gotta be patient. Have a study area. Try to organize yourself as much as possible. Eliminate distractions. Have this study area. Read books as much as possible. I have lots of books here. I order books all the time. The more books I read, the more knowledge I gain, the more problems I solve. Recently, what happened, I was having a very huge problem actually. And I read one book in one day. I finished that book, I think, in 5 hours. And also, one problem that students are facing these days, especially in Uzbekistan, it's a relationship. Do not go into a relationship if you are not ready, please, because it's unlikely that there will be a high level of reciprocity in relationships these days in the 21st century. The time will come, you will go into a relationship and you will find somebody who will love you unconditionally for the rest of your life. Because when you are in a relationship, you get distracted a lot. You get stressed, you get anxious when your partner is having a bad day, it affects you, and you don't want to study. So here we go. Try to isolate yourself, and then when you become financially stable, when you become ready, you will start paying attention to those aspects of your life.
A lot of great tips and a lot of great advice. I particularly like your focus on patience because this is an area that I also see my students struggle
Yes.
with. And let's be honest, I struggle with this too. We want everything now, but things take time. And we call that either the compounding effect or the snowballing effect when you learn small amount of information and it builds and it builds and it builds. And when you look back over a period of 3 months, you realize, wow, all those small improvements really
Yes.
compounded or snowballed into something great. So I love that tip that you shared. Now, Mustafa, you're speaking very fluently. You're able to share your ideas in a very clear, well structured way. But I also point out that you live in Uzbekistan and perhaps you're not necessarily in an English environment all the time. So, how were you able to specifically improve your speaking skills and gain the confidence to speak for 5 minutes without stopping right here on this channel when you're not necessarily in an English speaking environment every day?
So there is a theory called the spotlight effect. A lot of students struggle with that. That everybody is like looking at me. Students have these high expectations. Everybody's looking at me. Everybody's expecting something from me. Actually, that's not the case. Nobody cares about you. So back in 2020, nobody cares about you. What I mean by that? Well, first of all, people forget if you make a mistake. People forget if you achieve something worthwhile. People forget if you embarrass yourself. People forget if you do something really bad. What I'm trying to say is that at the time I struggled speaking because I was afraid of speaking in front of people. I was afraid of showing myself. I was afraid of giving lectures, giving presentations, on and on and on. So what I did was I kept telling myself all the time, hey, the person that you see today, you might not see that person like tomorrow or even like for the rest of your life. What I'm trying to say is that eliminate this fixed thought that you have, like everybody's looking at me. Talk to yourself 24/7 as much as possible. That's the first thing I did. Let's say I learned the expression I like something. Yeah, I like books, I like reading something, something, something. So I started making sentences in speaking in front of the mirror. I would sit, I would talk to myself for a couple of hours. I would drink if I got dehydrated. I would talk to myself. When I went out, I would talk, 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 talk. So self talk was the most powerful weapon I had. If you do not talk in English, how are you supposed to improve your speaking skills? Tell me. By reading books? Not gonna happen. By listening to something? Not gonna happen. You have to speak. Plus, you have to talk to individuals, the opposite gender. Destroy your comfort zone, talk to the opposite gender, try to show yourself as much as possible. Because, Jennifer, as I told, I have gained over 200K on Instagram in 2 months. How? By talking, by expressing myself in the proper way, in the right way. Listen, speaking is very important when you are giving a job interview. You have to speak when you are talking to people, when you are trying to make a first good impression. You have to talk. So self-talk is the most powerful weapon. The second one, which I recommend, is listening. You have to connect listening with speaking. In our previous interview, I emphasized that a lot because the more you listen to people, the more ideas you get, and then you will like express those ideas through your speaking. So, yeah.
I completely agree with you. I think if you're not listening to someone, like for example, as you were talking, if I were planning what I'm going to do next or think about what I'm going to make for dinner, how could I respond? How could I ask you a question? It takes a lot of focus for me to actively focus and listen to every word you say. It
Yeah.
takes work, it takes focus, but it's the key of being a good communicator, a great communicator. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And also, I love your concept of self talk. Self talk, you might live in a country where you don't have access to a native speaker, but you
Yes.
can talk to yourself. So thank you for sharing that for everyone. And Mustafa, if my students were to do one thing this week, only one thing to improve their English fluency, what is that one thing they should do and why?
Okay. So the first thing that students have to do, listen more, listen, but do not listen to like things that you don't like. Engage yourself in interesting videos, whether it's a film, whether it's a cartoon, it doesn't really matter. Actually, I would watch cartoons a lot. The more you listen to, the more ideas, the more input you get. So that's the first thing. The second one is self-talk, as I had mentioned before. The third one is imitation, shadowing. Imitate native speakers, but only native speakers as much as possible. Just put a video or interview on YouTube on your laptop. Start imitating, because the more you imitate, the more you pronounce words correctly. This is what happens. I would imitate native speakers for 25 minutes every single day without taking days off, like 7 days a week. 25 minutes every single day. I would imitate a Canadian native speaker because that's what I like the accents. And the more I imitated, the more I realized my pronunciation was getting better. But be patient. So self talk, listening, imitation. Combine those, eliminate distractions. Do not go into a relationship if you're not ready. Shut out social media and the distractions that you have, and be patient. Have
Well,
secondary.
you gave more than one thing for my students to focus on, but that's okay. You gave different options. So, how about for my students watching, share the one thing that you want to focus on this week based on what Mustafa said, and that will be your commitment for this week. Well, thank you so much for being here again, Mustafa, and sharing all your wonderful advice with my students.
Jennifer, thanks for inviting one more time. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next interview. Thank you so much.
And where can my students find you on Instagram, since you are very active, sharing all your advice and working with students as well? Where can they find you?
So for those watching from in Uzbekistan, I am a very active user right now. Mustafa English on Instagram, on Telegram. I share a lot of English content materials. IELTS with Mustafa on Telegram. So yeah.
All right. Well, I'll make sure those are in the description so my students can easily find you and connect with you. Thank you again, Mustafa, for being here.
Jennifer, thank you. Bye bye.